Meet a very special Jaguar, the I-Pace, and this is the very first all-electric Jaguar. That's right, it's powered by batteries. And Jaguar flew me out here to Milk Studios in Hollywood, California, where they unveiled it virtually, which is really fun to do when you're wearing the VR glasses. And of course, I will also tell you as much as I can about this new electric cat. And Ian, this is your baby, obviously?
It's a lot of our babies. I'm lucky enough to lead the team, yes.
So let's talk about the basics first of all. Talk about the powertrain.
Okay, so the powertrain is basically two electric motors, one on the front, one on the rear. Each motor is 200 horsepower, 350 newton meters of torque, so 400 PS, 400 horsepower, 700 newton meters of torque. The powertrain we use, they're permanent magnet, synchronous motors with a concentric transmission on the end. And basically the drive shaft runs back through the electric motor to each axle. The reason we've chosen that is it's the most package efficient solution for the car. Charge times obviously dependent on the charging infrastructure. The fastest public charging system when the car is launched in 2018 will be the 50 kilowatt DC charger, and this car will charge to 80% in 90 minutes using one of those chargers.
0 to 60 around 4 seconds. Not one, but two electric motors, one in each axle, and a 93 kilowatt hour battery, which should be good for about 500 kilometers, or if you're here in the US, about 220 miles of range. There's an AC and a DC charger, which means it should recharge relatively quickly. And of course, the most important question, will the production car actually look like this I-Pace? And Ian Collin, the car's designer, says yes, this will be remarkably similar to the car that's actually going to roll off the assembly line.
It's still about the form, the lines, the dramatic proportions, albeit maybe back to front from what people might expect. And it still has a familiar face. We've created a new face for Jaguar, and it's still there. And that was important to us because we're building up the family, and we need to give Jaguar an identity that people recognise. So that's what the face is about.
Favourite part of the car?
Yeah.
I love the design. I mean, the design's great. It's just the impact of the car, and I think Ian's already made the point that the cab forward design, it looks cool, and actually it has a practical benefit as well. And you know, it's so much bigger in terms of the overall interior package of the space. From a technical perspective, it's got to be the motors. The motors deliver torque so immediately. Lucky enough to have been driving some of the prototypes of the car, just driving around one of our handling circuits, and just the immediate response that the electric motors give, you know, that immediacy of response is just phenomenal. The car will be an absolute hoot to drive.
Have you done any 0 to 60 testing yet?
We have, yeah.
Well, how fast?
So the car will go 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. So not only will it feel fast, but it is fast as well.
Now Jaguar, of course, has a very popular all-wheel drive system, right, which allocates power to whatever wheels. Will that same kind of technology be in this, or will there be locking differentials? How does that work?
Okay, well, it's actually, we've got more control over the torque distribution. You've got almost infinite control with electric motors
So
in
left to
terms
right,
of front to rear. That's right. So we can shift the torque or control the levels of torque front to rear. So this means that in all levels of traction and weather, you know, we've got a high performance all-wheel drive system, which is just right for a performance SUV.
Now, how are you dealing with the fact that batteries, of course, don't do well in the cold?
Right, okay. So you're right. I mean, batteries need to be kept at their optimal operating temperature, 20-25 degrees, something like that, which can be a challenge. Now, when you engineer and design one of these cars, what's important to do is become very aware of your energy usage. What we've done is actually we've engineered a thermal scavenging system, a heat exchanger to the front of the car, and a heat pump. And what that enables us to do, even in cold conditions, we can take advantage of the ambient conditions, take that temperature from the air and use it to heat the batteries. We've worked out that for every kilowatt we use with the heat pump pumping the thermal energy back to the batteries to bring the temperature up, we actually save about 2.5 kilowatts were we to use the battery system on the car to heat the batteries. Why is that important? Well, that translates to a range increment of about 50 kilometers on a cold day. So you can see you become a lot more aware about how you use as much energy you can for free rather than relying on the batteries to deliver that range.
You may be wondering about two very important numbers. How much will it cost and what's the MPGE? But before we even get to that, Jaguar has yet to unveil the actual production version, which will happen next year. So this is just the beginning of the story of the very first electric Jaguar. Did you ever benchmark like the Model X, which is very similar to this? It's one of the first all-electric.
We benchmark a lot of cars as part of our normal business, but I think it's important not to think of this as just an electric car. It's a Jaguar. So it has to look like a Jaguar, has to feel like a Jaguar inside, the level of luxuriousness and refinement. It has to go like a Jaguar, the levels of performance, responsiveness, the agility and so on. And it's a BEV. So absolutely are we aware of what our colleagues are doing in the US. We watch with interest what Tesla are doing. But we know how to do performance SUVs, take the F-Pace, and the time was right to make a performance SUV that was also a BEV.
All right, now, the Tesla has a ludicrous mode, and 4 seconds for an all-electric car seems a little on the slow side. Are you kind of downgrading that number, or is it really higher? Because that does seem slow. I mean, you could get a lot more, you got all-wheel drive, you got a lot of torque and a lot of horsepower. It should be like a 3-second car.
It won't feel slow.
Okay.
It won't feel slow.
All right, I had to ask. And talk to me about the interior design. It seems like you've done a lot of cutting-edge materials. There's kind of a lot of innovative features.
Yeah.
I like the little slider that you had for the window. That was a really neat touch.
Right, yeah.
Talk to me about where that came from.
I think there's a lot about trying to put our own stamp, our own individual personality into the car. And I think when you talk a bit about design, there's a little bit of that kind of eccentricness, uniqueness, sense of humor really that I think for me and more importantly for Ian and the design team really encapsulates British design. So a Jaguar is not necessarily about conforming, it's about beautiful design, beautiful forms, simple forms, but that little twist, that little bit of sense of humor, and you'll see in the car lots of little examples about that. One example is you'll see the GPS location of the design studio. You open the glove box, see a glove and a little embossed print of a glove. Just little things that make you smile when you get inside the car.
Hey, Jaguar
right.
Easter eggs.
Exactly.
And how much of this will actually make it into production? Obviously, the notorious fact is that production cars are so different from the concept cars. Right. So are we looking at what's going to be rolling off the assembly line?
So we're positioning this as a concept, as a preview of the production car. And I am very, very confident that when you see the production car, you won't be disappointed. Okay. This is very close to the production car.
I mean, I'm looking at some pretty big ass wheels and tires. That affects ride. You know all that.
We do. But we're car guys, the designers love them, I love them as well.
You won't be really good.
You won't be disappointed when you see the real car, the production car.
Have you driven it?
I have. I've driven the prototype versions, yeah, absolutely.
What's it drive like?
Fantastic. I mean, it's great. It's about getting the engineering fundamentals just right. So getting the 50-50 weight distribution, by getting the motors, or rather the batteries, in between the axles, getting the batteries as low as you possibly can. We talked about getting the center of gravity as low as possible, about 120 millimeters lower than a car like an F-Pace. You get these fundamentals just right, a stiff body structure, then we know how to tune the suspension architecture we've got to deliver a car which is comfortable, refined, but at the same time it's agile and responsive and it changes direction fast.
And this has the same suspension as the F-Pace, right?
It's basically the same architectural suspension as an F-Pace.
As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, electric Jaguar concept previews. See you guys next time. Ciao. Oh, by the way, don't forget to click there for another great TFL video and there to subscribe. We really appreciate the fact that you watch.